So, welcome to the Saguaros Charities podcast. We're here with President Braydon Dennis and life member of the Saguaros, Trent Hancock. Trent, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about. So, you are a life member now, but how long were you in the Saguaros and how'd you get involved?
My path was interesting. I'm born and raised in Arizona, but I moved away for a long time, and I moved back mid-30s. I was 35, and I hadn't lived here since I was 16, and so it was this weird like amnesia thing or deja vu where I live in a place but I don't know anybody. And as a guy in your 30s trying to meet other guys, it gets a little bit weird. I don't know if you've ever seen I Love You Man, but it's like, you want to be my friend? They're like, get away from me. I'm like, cool. Yeah. So I had just started working back in the family business, and one of our lenders is a guy that you know named Joe Connor. And Joe, I think at the time, was president. And he had mentioned, there's this organization at the time called Scottsdale 2030, and they had this event called the Olympiad, and would I be interested in participating in that? So my route to the Saguaros was through the Olympiad. That was my first exposure to the event and to what the club was about. And it was just an awesome party. I'm like, perfect, this is great. And I remember asking him at the time, like, so, how do I get involved? And he was like, so what's your network like? And I'm like, I don't know anyone. He's like, you might want to wait a couple of years. I'm like, what? Like, just what? Okay, cool. So, but now I know for good reason, it was like, I had just moved back into town, didn't really have a network, didn't have a way to fundraise really, just didn't know what I didn't know. So I came back the next year, was on a team the next year in the Olympiad. Then I went to night flight. And after a couple of years of that, Joe was like, all right, I think you're ready to, go through the prospective process. And so I went to a couple of happy hours, and it was, for me, super uncomfortable. I'm not like just go strike up a conversation with a random guy in a bar normally. Yeah. And it was funny because I remember he's like, yeah, you just go interrupt people. I'm like, that's like not me. Like, I'm not going to, hey, can you stop talking to this guy right now? But I made it through the happy hours and got into the prospective period. And I think you were actually the VP of membership at the time. Yep. Yeah, I remember that. And I got
the shit out of you.
Exactly. And so, yeah, I remember being in the room, coming in through entrance interviews, and it was back when they had it right by, or is it the Biltmore right there? That big conference room.
Yeah. Tobias's conference room.
And at the time, I want to say like there was probably a record participation for how many people came in to just those entrance interviews. And there's like 60 guys in the room, and I go in there, like people are behind me. I'm like, what's up? And so definitely was, intimidating coming in, but quickly, knew these were my people. We started going to a bunch of events. The, Bosco's place was the place to be. And it was amazing. Just that crew and that camaraderie right out the gate was second to none. So I knew this is something I want to be a part of.
I think you've worn about 10,000 hats for our club during your time. What was your favorite role you've done?
I would say probably the Charities Chairman. It was the most stressful, but probably the most rewarding.
Yeah. No, nothing about that.
It is just, that's why we do what we do. It's everything we do comes back to the charity partners that we're giving to. And when you come in, I remember in all honesty, when I came in, I only was aware of one of our charity partners, and that's because my family was involved with, we built the house for the charity organization. And so I didn't know a lot about what was going on locally, but, it's seeing the work that our charity partners do, and, we get to do the easy part, the fundraising. As hard as it is compared to what they're doing, it's not even close. And I think, Lorraine was in here, but there are just incredible things happening on a daily basis here in Arizona. And I think it's important, that's the most important thing that anyone can remind themselves, because if you watch the news ever, it's the world's on fire and everyone's horrible. And so being reminded on a daily basis, especially through that position, that there's incredible humans doing great work, especially for kids locally here in Arizona, it just couldn't be a better position.
Yeah. What were some of the other positions you held?
So I was on the charities. First, I was on charities committee, but then I was in a committee for ABC. I was on a committee for Night Flight. Then I was director of gala for Night Flight. I did I was the chairman for ABC, and I'm trying to think what else. There's a bunch of things. I
Yeah,
just
I mean,
dove head first.
So you did a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
I feel like
Did gala like 3 years in a row. Yeah.
What was your experience with the ABC? Talk a little bit about that.
ABC was, I would say,
You were chairman 22?
Chairman 22.
Is that
Yep.
right?
So we had, it was a tough task. We had just come out of COVID, and COVID kind of took the wind out of the sails. I mean, you talk about like our industry, it was really hard. Like, it's all about that momentum and feeding, that energy year after year. And we'd gotten to this place right before COVID that was just like amazing. And then COVID happened, and it was like the whole premise of the Olympiad and ABC is throwing these events, and now you can't have events. And it's like, but the charity partners still need money. So what do we do? And, on the real estate side, on residential side, I think you've got the owner operators that are cutting the checks too. So it's a lot more difficult to like get them re-engaged. So we had a difficult task, I think, coming out of COVID, but I thought, people were super fired up. I just threw everything at it. We did our events, as many as we could. We created new events. We created CFK. I didn't even mention.
I was going to say, yeah.
CFK.
Revenue said events. I was like, oh, wait,
Yeah.
Cards for Kids. That was one you literally created for us.
So
I think you still hold the record for ABC. A little bitter about, but you figured it out somehow.
yeah, it was, so we did Cards for Kids. It was, I might have pushed a little too hard, but I was passionate. And at the end of the day, it was a fun process.
You said passionate, and I think that's anybody that knows you will say that 100% that you're passionate. Can you tell us what made you passionate about the Saguaros specifically?
The members, and to be honest, like there's something really unique about the Saguaros, and that is that we're capped at 50. And I think that is very intentional. A lot of other organizations, in fact, I don't know any other organization that we're similar to that caps it at that number. Like, they have higher caps or they don't have caps at all. And it's really just like, get as many people, and something's, we're going to raise money no matter what if we have enough people. But I think the intentional decision to cap it at 50 means like part of the exit interviews, you got to know everybody's name and their title. And that's 2 weeks, or not 2 weeks, but just a few months into getting into the organization, know everybody's name. And so when you start off with that level of camaraderie, like, you don't want to let any of your brothers down. You're in the trenches together, and you're raising money together, and it's like not only charity partner, but adding that dynamic to it as well. These become your best friends, and you don't want to disappoint.
Yep. Yeah, it almost adds another purpose of kind of what we're doing here, right? Just in life. I get that a lot. It's just, why do you do what you do in the Saguaros? And it just kind of gives you meaning. Yeah.
And there's that brotherhood thing. And with any brother rivalry, there's a rivalry with brothers.
Yep, for sure.
And you're just like, I'm going to, I want to compete and I want to beat we talked about just the record, right? Like, everyone's like, yeah.
No idea what
But
you're
it's the
talking
greatest
about.
thing. It's one of those competitions that ends up being great for, nobody loses. It's just like, it's only going to benefit the charity partners. So,
yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and everyone wants to grow in the organization. Everyone wants a leadership role, and so everyone knows, all right, in order to do that, I got to step up, and I got to show these guys everything I possibly can do to kind of earn that spot.
And I'm just more and more impressed every year with the level of talent and the guys that we're bringing in. It's just that much more cutthroat, and because there's only 50 guys, there's only so many positions, and everyone's competing for those positions. So you really have to give it 1,000%, or you're not even getting close.
Yeah, the thing I hear over and over again from like the older guys is always like, I don't even know if I'd be able to get in the club today because of the caliber of people we're bringing in today.
I know you wouldn't be able to.
Right? It's like,
I wouldn't be able to.
Right? It's crazy. Yeah, we're bringing in some serious talent that are raising some serious dollars and doing some really cool things with the community. So it's been fun to watch.
Yeah.
But that doesn't happen. I'll just say this: that doesn't happen without guys like you that have come in and you only had a short time frame that you were able to do things and did everything you could possibly do.
Yeah.
I think it really does reflect well on our club that's how we get to where we are today and kind of where we're going in the future. So.
And I think that is a big part of it too. Outside of that brotherhood and camaraderie is just, I only had 5 years to do whatever I wanted to do. And so I set my sights at like, I want to have an opportunity to be president. And with 5 years, you got to just go for it.
Yep.
I think a lot of the guys coming in younger, if you're coming in your early 20s, there's a long runway there. Yep. But with that amount of time, it was very intentional. I was just going and doing everything I could.
Yeah, I kind of compare you to the Matarazzo in that regard. Of you both just kind of came in the later years and just hit the ground running and did everything you possibly could, and,
Yeah.
and stand out as a legacy member for our organization. No question about it. So.
Madrazo was definitely the prototype. I'm like, yeah, I want to do that.
It's good to model after. He did just fine.
Well, Trent, thank you. We appreciate you coming on and obviously everything you've done for our club, and look forward to seeing what else you can continue to do with us.
Me too. Silver Saguaros is next.
Silver Saguaros, baby.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Jen.
Appreciate it.